night, morning, where you are. Hope you're good. It's nice to see you, Colin, every time we have these classes.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, me too, me too.
But also, I think Philip is a new guy.
Yeah, I haven't seen
I'm not
him
sure,
before.
but I think so. Nice. I like that. Okay, and also, hi everyone who's watching us on YouTube on the live stream. Hello.
Yep. Welcome, everyone. Hope you guys are good. I'm opening the stream over here to check the chat as well. Okay, awesome, guys. Again, welcome to today's class. I think the YouTube stream doesn't show the actual title of the class, but just to introduce that real quick, today's topic is called Goal-Focused Practice Routines. I had that idea because I feel as a guitar player, it's not only important to work on your specific stuff, but also very important to know what to practice and how to practice it. And that's actually something we take very seriously over here in the academy. And we understand that time is a huge factor because we all have guitar going, but a lot of other things to resolve in our lives. So we need to be very effective and goal oriented with our practices. So with that in mind, I had that idea for today's class. Um, I was thinking of a couple of focuses, like different goals you could be maybe taking a look at. One of them can be if you're into working on your soloing, another one if you want to work on songs and repertoire, another one is if you want to work on your technique. Those are the main three I was thinking of. Maybe we'll think of different tweaks here and there as the class progresses. But yeah, that was just to introduce this real quick. Also, for the people that don't know us, I am Juan. I am with Victor today. We are two of the instructors at the academy. And guys, if you want to consider joining, please do by all means. I'm gonna leave you the link in a second. And with that in mind, how are you today, Victor?
I have the link as well, so here it is in the chat and also in the YouTube chat on the live stream. If
Sure.
anyone over there is interested in checking that out as well, okay? So you can just click on that link and it will just ask you a few quick questions. It doesn't take longer than 2 minutes to fill that survey and to book your first call with the GuitarZoom Academy, okay? I'm doing fine, Juan, by the way. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
and yes, guys, as Juan said, so that's the subject of today's class. In the meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, okay, to interrupt us, feel free to do so, okay? Also, for those of you watching us on YouTube, you can just type in your questions in the chat section, okay?
awesome,
Okay,
guys. With
let's
that in
go.
mind, yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about first our personal ways of approaching that because we are still learning as well. As even though we can teach and all of that, we're still always learning new stuff. So, how do you approach your practice routine currently, Victor?
Well, I usually I have times when I practice every day, and then I have times when I don't practice at all. But these are the days when I play, when I have many rehearsals, when I have gigs, when I have recording sessions. So in those days, I'm keeping myself in shape by actually playing. So you can actually skip practice on days that you have other guitar related chores to do, right? But whenever, for instance, when I do practice, I try to focus on what's coming next. So for instance, if I have a particular recording session that is going to require a different, let's say, sound approach, this is something that we don't think about too often when it comes to practicing. We always think of technique and theory and stuff like that, but sound is also an integral part of your playing. So sometimes your practice routine actually means practicing sound, practicing how to make your guitar sound the way you intend it to sound, right? If you have a particular recording session coming up, or a band rehearsal, a practice, or you're working on a new song with your band or by yourself, sometimes it comes to finding the correct sound as well, not only practicing your physique and technique. Okay, I hope that makes sense. But also, aside from sound, of course, technique and theory, depending on what you're working on next. So for instance, it may be uh, a longer solo or something that you're, first of all, you need to understand that, and then you need to learn how to play it, and then you need to practice the technical side of it. But sometimes you should take a few steps back and to see if you actually do understand what's in there. And to do so, you might need to learn some theory and to understand what the harmony of the song is, and why a phrase is composed in the way that it is, and why is this scale used over here, and then it changes, and whatever. I hope that makes sense. How do you approach it, Juan?
Yeah, definitely. I think you mentioned something very, very important, and it is why are you practicing? For instance, in your case, a very important factor is gigging, right? Like playing a specific repertoire.
Sure.
And you need to practice based on that specific goal. So the way you practice is practicing the songs that you're gonna play, right? The sound that might include effects in your specific case. I am assuming that you experiment a little bit with your effects. So yeah, all of these things come into play. But I think the important factor that we need to not forget is that there's a goal in mind. Like Victor's practicing his sound and his repertoire towards that place. Personally, I agree on that. I have my, let's say, eras on which I practice, and some of them which I don't. Currently, I'm not, to be completely honest. My musical time is spent most of the time on writing. So I just practice my guitar if I need to play for a gig or a recording. Otherwise, I might not play. Sometimes I just play for fun, but most of the time I'm focused on either writing or working on my singing, which is also one of my goals. But that's because of that. I have like a very clear goal of I want to write my music and to be able to sing it. So my effort is being prioritized towards that place. That's one thing. Now, another one, again, most of the time that I practice currently is like focused on a specific repertoire, whether because I have a gig or a recording session. So I take all of those songs into account, and most of my time is spent there. Now, talking about some specifics on what to practice, how to practice, and for how much time, here's my suggestion. If you are into practicing repertoire, like let's say that you just want to play the songs you like, whether for fun or you want to challenge yourself with a specific repertoire that makes you grow, I consider always very important to work on our technique still, like just to be in shape and keep working on our sound, and our technique is extremely important. I would start warming up there. So let's say that you're working on a song that's on the key of, I don't know, C sharp minor, to say something, which is this. I would initially just try to learn maybe the chord progression. Let's say that it has these chords. So I don't know, C sharp minor, E major, B major, and G sharp minor, just to say a random example. So I would just start learning the chord progression and trying to understand the theory behind it, as Victor said. But I will also, as a technical warm-up on the instrument, I would start studying the scale of this key on different places of the fretboard. With this exercise, I'm working both on my theory knowledge and my fretboard knowledge as well, which is important to connect the two of them, and also my technique, because I'm forcing myself to execute a specific set of sounds on the fretboard. With doing this very simple exercise of just practicing the minor pentatonic, I'm working on knowing my positions on the scale, on executing the sounds with both hands. For instance, right now I'm doing alternate picking. What happens if I do legato with the same example? Now just hammer and some pull-ups. Sounds a little different. So that's a warm-up I would do. If you're very limited on time, I would say spend some 5 to 10 minutes warming up, just practicing your scale. There's a lot of skills you can work on with just doing that. As I said, like fretboard knowledge, theory knowledge, technique, even timing can be worked on over here. So yeah, I wouldn't stop warming up. But I would focus most of your time, again, if your goal is learning songs, spend most of your time learning the actual song and practicing the actual things that you need to practice for that song. Let's say that, I don't know, my song that I'm working on, which had that progression, has a strumming that I'm having trouble with. Let's say that it has, I don't know how this is called, but this kind of muted strum. Let's say that I'm having trouble doing that. For instance, very personally, I have trouble doing that technique on an upstroke. Let me just turn the camera down for a second. I have trouble doing this. Like, my muting is not so clean as I would wish doing this. Let's say that the pattern sounds like this. I would spend my time really examining this motion on every single chord initially. Then I would speed it up. That was not so clean, so I would really focus on my execution of the technique. And then I would incorporate the rest of the chord progression. Like, let's say it sounds like this. It sounds like something already, right? Again, I'm just thinking of a random example, but this is stuff that we can apply to the actual repertoire we're working on. I would spend, if you're very limited on time, let's say that you have half an hour to practice. I would just spend the first 5 to 10 minutes on warming up, and the rest of the 20 minutes focused on the actual stuff you need to practice from the song. That's one idea, working on the chord progressions and your strumming. But maybe it's also important to work on the song structure. Maybe take a listen to the song that you're studying, write down the structure. I don't know if it has a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, and a bridge. I don't know. Write all of that stuff down. That way, one, the song structure is much clearer in your head beforehand, like before diving into the actual musical materials. And two, the sole art of writing down the information is another very, let's say, useful way of studying, because as you write it, that information will be retained over here as well, and you'll also have an aid for you to work on the song later on. So it's kind of a win-win if you also write this kind of stuff down. I would recommend write the chord progressions, write the song structure. That stuff is really, really useful. So yeah, that's like maybe just my initial suggestion or suggested approach on how to work on a repertoire. Do you have any comments there, Victor? Or are there any questions, guys?
What I would like to add is, whenever, for instance, what Juan said about that upstroke scratch with muting, for instance, when something doesn't come out as nicely as you want it to, and you are facing a so-called problem, try to analyze yourself. What is it that you might be doing wrong? Try to take a closer look at your hands, okay? So don't just repeat the same thing over and over again until you get it right by chance, by accident, okay? Try to really analyze yourself, but the best way to do this is to, this is a problem especially when it comes to playing fast, for instance. Try to play it slowly, but in the same way. Hold the hands in the same way and attack the string in the same way as you would if you were playing it up to speed. Okay, does that make sense? So for instance, if we're talking about this scratch, let's say that it's a very fast progression, like I'm gonna take the same one but maybe speed it up a little bit, right? Oh, it was in 3/4, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then for instance I'm playing this for the first time and I'm approaching it wrongly. Okay, so now I'm gonna slow it down, but I'm gonna try to keep a loose right hand, for instance, as I would have to when playing it faster. And then I'm gonna analyze, what am I doing wrong? Okay, so the problem might be that I'm not placing my right hand where I should. Maybe I should place it more backwards towards the bridge. Maybe I should touch with this part of the flesh, or maybe with this. And I'm gonna analyze myself and take a closer look at my right hand, okay? And then I'm gonna figure it out after a while, okay? And then I'm gonna practice it slowly and speed it up gradually, okay, until I get it up to speed. And there is no way that you cannot overcome a problem if you approach it this way, okay?
Awesome. Yeah. So I just wanted to say we're talking about some specific stuff, but just as an example, right? But this is stuff that you can take to any
Sure.
aspect of your playing. So we just said as an example, I could be struggling with that kind of strumming, but let's say that you're struggling with a specific chord change. That's something very common. You're working, I don't know, on a chord progression, and you have troubles with placing your fingers a specific way on the fretboard. You can take what Victor just said as the same approach there. Try to examine yourself and try to examine what's going wrong there, like what's really holding you back on that specific issue. For instance, I don't know if you're doing this chord change. I'm trying right now from G major to D major with the bass here. Maybe it's because you're having trouble changing from like this fingering to, I don't know, this one. Like it for some reason might take you some time to get there. So try to break down the stuff that you are struggling with and be very patient on just isolating that specific issue. For instance, if I have trouble right here, I will do it extremely slowly until I'm able to play one chord and then the other. Like it doesn't matter if it takes me an hour to get from one chord to the other. As long as I can get to this one, okay, let's do it again. If you isolate every little aspect and start to work on just that one over time, you will build that skill up and it will be very, very easy to speed it up over time. So yeah, that's stuff that I think can be useful for songs, like working on the strumming, on the chord changes, and isolating any potential issues you might have, trying to identify what's holding you back there and try to solve it by just slowing it down and not worrying about anything else. Hope that's making sense so far, guys. Please let us know if there are any comments, both here on Zoom and on YouTube. There's a comment from Philip. He's saying, I do find slowing down and looping apart I am having trouble with to be helpful. Definitely, slowing down helps you have more time to think about what you need to do right. So even if you need to go to the most extreme end of slowness, go, because you will have the time to do things right there. And once you start doing them right at any speed, you'll be able to do it faster and faster and faster over time until we get to the intended speed. So definitely slowing down helps a lot. Also, Colin says the fat part of my middle finger always seems to dull the next string to it. Yeah, so that's something like going into that specific question, Colin. That's something that can be answered with, I would say, your knuckles. So your knuckles are this part of your hand, right? Actually, like this one, but I consider this the same part. So sometimes your knuckles are way close to the fretboard. They're almost touching it, if not really touching it, and that causes the fingers to kind of lay too low and cover the string that's below. So if you take your knuckles a little bit away from the fretboard, look, now I'm starting to get a little bit of that open A string. If I take it a little bit further, I now have this note isolated on the low E, and my A string can be open, right? It's a huge difference to support my hand like this than taking my knuckles away and doing this. So sometimes that's the issue, that your hand might be too close to the fretboard. It's kind of clenched like this instead of a little bit more open. Yep, so hope that helps, Colin. Yeah, that's my little take on songs. Do you have any other approach or comments there, Victor?
Yeah, what Colin said. So also, it sometimes it helps to try and fret the note with a slightly different part of the finger. Okay, so try using more the tip of the finger than this part of it. Okay, but don't go too far. Don't go. Don't let your string go under the fingernail. Okay. First of all, it will hurt, and second of all, you will produce a not so good sounding note. Okay, but try to find the sweet spot, sorry, between the tip of the finger and the inside of the what is this called? We call this the pillow of the finger. I'm not sure about the English
I
term.
don't know, but look,
Pad.
it's
Yes, the pad.
hopefully
Yes.
you can see this. I don't know if the like lets you see, but I tried to mark like the string on the tip of my finger. Hopefully it can be seen. It's like right there on that place that Victor's mentioning. Like
Yeah.
not too close to the nail, not too close to here to like the fingerprint, but right in the middle, right in the tip of the finger.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
try to play the strings that way. Also, I just thought of a last comment I have on learning songs. I mean, this stuff is really a little bit hard to talk about because we need to take into account so many different levels that a guitar player can have and different goals. So we need to try to do something for everyone. But in case you're just starting out and really want to play songs, I would say initially just try to look for songs that have open chords or cowboy chords, like chords that have open strings. There are infinite amounts of songs that have those types of chords. But if you're really just starting out, worry about the sound of your chords, which is basically what we were just talking about. So as an exercise I always do for my very beginner students is play your chord string by string and make sure that all of the notes sound clean, that there's no buzzing or any muted strings, for instance, something like this. Right, there's a little bit of buzzing, the string is covered, right, you might get some uneven sounds. So examine your chords note by note on every chord of your chord progression. Make sure that they're sounding pretty clean. One very quick way of doing that is making sure that you're pressing your strings close to the fret. So the frets are these metallic bars right here, right? So if you go too far away, you get this buzzing sound. If you go over the fret, it's gonna be muted. But if you're right behind it, it sounds very clean. So apply that principle for your chords. It's different to play this than this, right? And look, I just moved my hand. No different fix than just doing that. So take that approach on the chords that you're learning on your song. Okay, that will be extremely useful. Yeah, that's my little tips on songs. Any other
And
ideas, guys?
you don't have to worry, guys, about having, as Philip said, fat fingers. No worries at all, because there are many guitar players. Let's take B.B. King as an example, right? He had fat fingers. Did it ever stop him from playing well? No. Also, Yngwie Malmsteen, there was a time when his fingers were really chubby and he was still the fastest player in the world. So you don't have to worry about that at all. You can always find a way of how to attack the string when fretting a note, so as not to make that buzzing sound on the string below. Okay? But also sometimes it comes to the fingering pattern that you're using and the way you, let's say if we're talking about changing chords, sometimes it also comes to which fingering you're using for the next chord. Because for instance, if I have to play a G chord and then a C chord, instead of doing this big jump and rearrangement of my fingers, I'd much rather play my G chord like this, and now my C chord is very close. I just have to put these two down and add the index finger, and that's it. Okay? But for instance, if I have a change from G to D, I'd much rather use this G shape than this one. Because when using this shape, I'm just gonna keep this finger because it is a shared note between the G and the D chord. And I'm gonna anchor with this finger. I'm not lifting it up. I'm lifting up the other fingers. And I'm using this as an anchor, okay? And I'm just pivoting in a way, okay? Also, for instance, for the regarding the first example that Juan gave us for the chord change between G and this kind of a D chord with an F sharp bass, for some people it works better this way. Instead of playing the D/F sharp like this, you can also add your thumb and just play a regular D major chord and add the thumb on the sixth string like this. I believe this is the way, I'm not sure about this, but I think that this is the way Angus Young plays stuff like. with the thumb from above, because it's much easier in this case than doing this. At least for me. For some people, this other way might be easier, because it does depend on what you're used to. If you have been practicing that thing for a while and you've already developed a habit, and also it has a lot to do with your own physiognomy, with the way your hands are built. So you just have to find your own way, okay? And really study the way that you play and analyze yourself, as I said before, okay? And see what's working out for you, because there is no one size fits all rule, okay?
Yep, definitely. And also, expanding a little bit on that, yeah, try out different tweaks. What works for you might just work for you, but if it works, why change it? So yeah, on that thumb comment, there's a lot of people that play like that. For instance, John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers plays bar chords with his thumb on the low E instead of like this, sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. And also it does depend on the occasion, because if you have, that's a Hendrix kind of a trick, right? Because if I'm gonna play something that also has a motion above, I'd much rather use the thumb for the bass notes so that I can do stuff like, right? But if I have to keep a steady chord and maybe, and then play this as the next chord, for instance, the goal is to try to keep as much as possible from the previous chord or lick or whatever it may be in the next one, okay? To have the least movement as possible, so as not to waste space and time, okay?
Yeah.
So if I have to play this chord and then this one, I'd much rather use my index finger for barring. But I mean, as opposed to playing this for the A minor and then this for the D minor, because why would I bother doing this big of a jump when I can just play this? Okay? But if I do have a situation where I have to play some, I don't know, some funky ornamental stuff on top of my A minor, I would much rather use this one than this one. Okay?
Yeah, so those are really specific stuff, but we don't want you guys to not only stay with what we're talking about on those particular things, but to take like the general concepts we're talking about. We're talking about tweaking your technique, right? Checking that your sound is clean, and if needed, make tweaks that work for you. Start exploring different options. You might find solutions that work for you for a specific issue, so by all means, explore that stuff. Now, dialing this down a little bit to the actual topic from today, which is based on practice routines, here's my suggestion, like a very general suggestion. Again, this doesn't necessarily fit for everyone, but you can start here and make your own tweaks on how to organize your time. I would say, on the time that you have to practice, assign 10% to 20% of the time to warming up, and if your focus is songs, work on that remaining 80%, half of that time on working on your chord transitions and just making sure that every chord sounds clean, that you're able to play them and transition between one chord and the other, and the other remaining half of the time work on your strumming for that specific song. Okay, we need to work obviously on our sound, but also on the rhythm aspect of the song we're trying out. So let's say that we have 30 minutes to practice. Spend some 5 to 7 minutes on warming up. Some, how much time is left? Like some 23 minutes, sorry. Spend, I don't know, 10 minutes on your chord transitions and 30 minutes on strumming. And at the end, you'll have a couple of minutes to maybe write down what you did on this practice session. That's going to be extremely important. Today, I got better at transitioning from G to D. So, okay, the next chord of the progression is A minor. So tomorrow, I'm going to work on the transition between D to A minor, and so on. You progressively take it one step at a time, And also, I just think it's a very important idea to register your practice. That way, you're not all over the place, but know exactly what you did last time and can take it on from there. You can just continue what you were doing last time. So, again, that's my suggested approach. And a small section at first to warm up, then half of your time for chord transitions and the other half for strumming. That's my general tip on working on songs. What do you have to say about it, Victor?
I have to say, you always try to make your learning process music oriented or song oriented, because you can just sit down and practice scales and practice technique and practice and learn theory and whatever, but you need to start applying this knowledge in order to really understand what you're doing and why are you learning the thing that you're learning. So for instance, if you, let's say that you want to learn a song by, I don't know, let's say you want to learn a song by Metallica, right? And it's gonna be something very riffy, heavily distorted, fast picking, mostly down picks, right? So you might want to add that to your practice routine. Okay, so for instance, you're gonna take the spider walk exercise, which we all know, I suppose. The 1, 2, 3, 4, down, up, okay? But in this for this occasion, I'm gonna practice the same thing using only downstrokes. I'm gonna practice it with a metronome and I'm gonna speed up the tempo gradually. And I'm gonna start like this, at a tempo that is comfortable for me, right? And then I'm gonna start speeding it up. Speed up the metronome, I mean. Okay, but play only downstrokes, because that's the technique that I'm gonna need for my next project song, okay? For the next thing that I wanna learn. So, for instance, let me give you an example of my practice routine. A few years ago, I decided to sit down and finally learn how to play. I don't know if you know the song Fracture by King Crimson. It's a very, very difficult thing to play. Very, very long and very fast. And it requires not only fast playing, but also endurance, also stamina. Okay? So I said, okay, I'm gonna build a practice routine to be actually to make myself able, to make myself ready for what's coming in this song. So I analyzed the thing and I said, okay, what's in here? Over here, I'm gonna be dealing with a whole tone scale, which is not the usual pentatonic or diatonic scale. It's a scale made only of whole steps, for instance. So how does this work? Okay, it's a symmetrical scale. What does it mean? That means that it is repeating. On every step you have the same scale and the same patterns repeating. So for instance, what I can play here, I can also play it here. Whatever it may be, right? And then, what else is there in this song? You probably don't know the song, but I hope you can still follow me. I'm just giving it as an example because there's quite a lot to it, okay? So, it requires fast picking. Okay, I'm gonna start practicing with a metronome. But this exercise by itself is not enough, because in this particular song, it's not like I'm only gonna have down, up, 4 notes per string all the time, right? There is much more to it. Sometimes there are odd number of notes per string. So I'm also gonna add this to my practicing. 3 notes per string. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? Also, it's not always gonna be the first finger, the second, the third, and the fourth finger. There are different fingering combinations, okay? So I'm gonna add that to my practice routine now. And I'm gonna play maybe 1, 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3. Then backwards. Then different fingering combinations like 1, 3, 2, 4. Okay? Stuff like that. Now, what's next? For instance, there are a lot of string skippings in this particular song. So I might as well add string skipping to my practice routine. So for instance, not only that I'm gonna play the spider walk like this, and not only that I'm gonna do different fingering combinations, but I'm also gonna add string skipping patterns to the same exercise. So now I'm gonna play the same 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 on all of the strings, but I'm gonna jump from the 6th string to the 4th, then back to the 5th, up to the 3rd, back to the 4th, up to the 2nd, and it's gonna sound like this. Okay, but sometimes there are also jumps over 2 strings in this song, so I might as well want to add that to my practice routine, and I'm gonna do that. Then I'm gonna speed it up and see what's the fastest that I can go with it. And then tomorrow I'm gonna add a few more beats to the tempo, maybe up for a 5 or a 10 if I can, whatever, okay? But do you understand where I'm going with this? So try to analyze the particular song that you're gonna be working on, and then add the techniques and the knowledge that you need for that song, add that to your practice routine. That's what I'm saying, okay?
Yep, that also has a lot to do with the other goal I wanted to maybe try out with a suggested routine, and it is soloing and technique. I want to include both of them on the same category, let's say, because I think they both have a lot to do. But yeah, that's definitely something to take into account. Never forget the context you're practicing for. So always take into account that that's the end goal. So if it's a Metallica song, work on your downstrokes. Work on the specific stuff you will need to get to that goal, and make that your priority time-wise. That's, I think, the bottom line of this whole session. With that in mind, and before moving on, guys, we just wanted to remind you that in case you're digging this kind of conversation and find it useful, one, we just invite you to be a part of our free school community. If you're not a part already, the people in Zoom obviously already are a part, but we'll also leave you the link on this YouTube chat for you guys to join. We're doing 2 of these classes over there every week, so we'll be just very happy to have you there. That's our free community. Now, in case you want a further, more personalized assessment on your goals and want to fit that in your process, please consider applying for our academy. I left you the link over there as well. It's link.guitarzoom.com/next-step for you to guys apply if you're interested into. We're having this kind of conversations over there every day on a wide variety of topics depending on what you're interested into or need to work on. We do this stuff every day, and there are 8 of us as instructors, so we really have a lot of variety going on over there. So if you want to consider that, please do, and we'll be happy to talk to you. Now, moving on today's topic on a practice routine. Now, the other one, so all of this we have talked about so far was focused on songs, right? But what happens if my focus is more on the soloing, and let's say that I either want to work on my technique or my improvisation skills, or both. Here's where these ideas come to play as well. For instance, let's say that I don't know, I just was thinking of a solo by Joe Pass, which is a solo I just want to study for fun, which sounds something like this. Sorry. That's as far as I remember. I need to practice the whole solo. But for instance, Joe Pass has a very specific way of playing, and it's that sometimes he picks everything. Everything that I just played was alternate picking. So if that's my goal, or at least one of my interests, to sound like him, I would take a look at my alternate picking skills. So I would practice my skills like this, strictly picking every note. Or let's say that I'm into legato. For now, I can just think of Mark Tremonti by Creed and Alter Bridge, who does a lot of legato, but it's a very different sound. Right? You get a very different sound when doing legato than you do when picking. Right? Very, very different. So I would practice my skills doing just hammer-ons and pull-ups instead of... Right, so never forget the goal you are aiming for, and never forget to apply that stuff into the context. Now, those are just some technical exercises that obviously are extremely useful and necessary to work on your technique and just get better and better. But also, don't forget including this in an actual context. So let's say that I'm working on that solo. That's on the key of F minor. So okay, I studied my scales up and down of the neck on F minor. Now what? Let's improvise a little bit with that stuff we learned from the solo over that key I'm practicing. So if I'm practicing F minor, why not look for a YouTube backing track? There are infinite amounts of backing tracks over there on YouTube. So look for an F minor backing track and start improvising with that. Look, here's a quick improv I'm gonna do using just alternate picking on F minor. Right, I'm just trying to pick everything. Now another one, just using legato. Right, we get a very different sound using each technique. So never forget the stuff you're aiming for. That's just a quick introduction. What do you have to say about it, Victor?
Yeah, regarding that particular example, can you please play the lick once again?
Sure.
The Joe Pass solo? Yes. So for instance, what's going on here is Juan is playing in the F minor scale, right? But if you practice the F minor scale by itself, you will see that there is this note is not a part of the scale. So you have to analyze and understand what is that note doing there. So in order to understand that, you have to learn the harmony first, learn the chords, the backing of the solo, and you will find that I don't know the particular song, but there is probably a dominant chord over there.
There is.
It might be
it's exactly that one.
dominant or whatever. Joe Pass usually uses a diminished chord for a dominant, I suppose. So, and you will see that this note is a part of the chord, and it's actually a part of the F minor harmonic scale, which is used over a dominant chord, because over there you have this sharp 7 of F, which is the third of C, okay? So in this case, if the chord is a C major 7, yes, you do have this note at that moment. Then later, when it goes back to the root chord, you cannot really rely on that note. You can use it as a passing note, but you cannot stay for too long on that note. And then when you understand this, you can actually use that knowledge for your own soloing, for your own improvised solos, okay? And next time you come across a dominant chord in a different song, in your own song or a different tune that you might be working on and want to improvise a solo over, you will know that you can actually use that same trick. Now, that is a very common trick to do, but I'm just saying, So, again. Okay?
Yeah, actually, you just reminded me of something. There's a saxophone player I love to listen to. His name is Terrace Martin. He's from LA, and he plays with Kendrick Lamar and has his own music, which is just amazing. So I really like his style, and I have transcribed a couple of solos from him because, one, he plays fast, and I sometimes are interested into taking my speed up, and two, he has just some very harmonic, crazy sounding phrases. So I want to take a deeper look, and I do exactly what Victor just said. Analyze the chord that's being played on the song and the line he's playing, and take a look at the notes that make up that line and what's the relationship of these notes with the chord. So for instance, with that, analyzing this Terrace Martin guy, I came up with two huge things I use on my solos. One of them is this kind of movements on the scale. like 3 notes, start at one on top, then go to a way lower one, and then play a note that's in between those two. If you play with me or just hear me play, you'll see that I do this stuff a lot of times. Those kind of just movements, I got them out from that dude, and I really use them all of the time on my improvs. So yeah, analyze the players you like. Also, more related to that harmonic analysis Victor was doing, this Terrace Martin guys uses a lot of augmented major 7 chords. I really love the sound of this kind of chords, so I have drilled them down on my fretboard to really understand where they can be found. Well, I forget the actual maps right now, but I have practiced them for a little bit. And that's stuff that I can come back to my solos when I need to. So yeah, if you transcribe a solo from somebody that you like, you'll learn a lot of stuff by just analyzing. But not only analyze it, but try to bring it to your own improvs. That's gonna be extremely, extremely beneficial for your soloing skills. You'll get fresher sounds out of things that you wouldn't usually think maybe on your own. But if you take a look at recordings and study all of them, you'll find some pretty interesting stuff. So that's a couple of ideas that we have. Now, how do you organize your time when practicing soloing, Victor?
When practicing soloing, sometimes I take stuff out of my scale practice. So for instance, there are a few ways to approach it, of course, and it's best if you can do all of them. But I very often like to do different twists to my scale practice routine. So for instance, instead of just playing, let's say that I'm practicing the G major scale, right? Instead of just playing it up and down, I'm gonna rearrange the order of the notes. So for instance, now I'm gonna play the same pattern of the scale, but I'm gonna play it backwards, ascending on the strings. Okay? And then I'm gonna ask myself, where can I use this as a lick if I like the way it sounds, okay? So I can, of course, use that G major scale over a G chord, of course. But what else can I do? For instance, what does the G major scale equal? It equals an E minor scale, for instance. And if this fingering pattern is comfortable for me, and if I like the way it sounds as a lick, I can also use this same thing over an E minor chord, let's say. Okay, or backwards. Okay, stuff like that. Then I'm gonna start applying different fingering combinations to the same lick. For instance, and I can also, let's say, think about it and realize that I can use it over an A minor chord if I need a Dorian sound, because G major equals A Dorian, okay? A Dorian is the second mode of G major, so I can also use that lick over an A minor chord. Okay, and it sounds nice, and it can become my own. Even though it does come from a scale practice, I can make a lick out of it. Okay, that's my usual way of approaching that.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool one.
Yeah.
Also,
that's it.
Yeah, something very cool to do is to revert the directions of the stuff you're doing. So if you're doing, what happens if you do? Right, one was
Yes.
the other you end up with something very different. And you got two different directions to approach the same scale.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of stuff we can play with. That's a very cool one. Yeah, I agree. Give your scales a twist. I mean, it's cool to play them on neighboring notes and just play them up and down of the fretboard, and that's extremely useful. Sometimes overlooked, I need to say. But yeah, it's also cool to give your scales a twist. So, a very cool resource I find for that is a concept called sequences, which is basically just applying a specific pattern to the scale. For instance, this is one I have practiced a lot, and it's 4 notes on a pentatonic scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then start again doing 4 notes, but on the next note of the scale. So we started here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the next note is here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You end up with a pattern, right? It's a different way of practicing your scale than just going like this. Both of them are important, but I find that every sequence will have like a specific melody to it. This one was a sequence. By all means, that's a sequence. So yeah, every one of them will have like its own character. For instance, I have practiced this one because I like it a lot, and you can see that kind of stuff, for instance, on George Benson's recordings. Like all of that funky, groovy stuff will have a lot of, and it really helps you go faster. So yeah, it's cool to give your scales a twist as well. Maybe practice them like this, but practice it on random ways, and you develop your own twists to your scale. For instance, here's one I have used as well, doing kind of fifths, so playing one note at one end on the scale, and then another one really far away. You get like that very alien white sound. I find it very cool. So what happens if you bring that to your own solos? You'll encounter pretty cool ideas when improvising with this kind of twists to give to the scale. Now, what I would say is, if you're starting out on this soloing rabbit hole, spend most of your time practicing your scales, because that's gonna be the framework you'll use in your actual solos. But don't forget to, maybe at the end of your practice session, some 10-15 minutes, dedicate them to improvising. Head into a backing track or just improvise on top of your metronome and start to create your own ideas based on the resources you're studying. Let's say that you have 30 minutes to practice today. Work your first 20 minutes on your scale, like try to understand the patterns, the notes that make it up, give the scale these little twists, practice them with a metronome, all of this stuff we have discussed today. But at the end of the session, dedicate some solid time, at least some 10 minutes, into just trying out ideas, and don't be afraid of it sounding awful, because it might, but there's also a lot to learn when it sounds awful. You'll realize what you like, what you don't, what sounds good for you and what doesn't. What can you do, and how can you give life to that material you're studying? So yeah, for instance, if I were to practice right now, I would start exploring this one on different places of the scale, and I would start implementing that on my improvs. So what happens if I use that and go somewhere else with my scale? Right? I got a leak right here just using that idea. So that's something I would expand on. But the point is, be creative and don't be afraid of putting your own ideas out there, because it's gonna feel weird at first, but there's a lot of growth to be had there. That's just my little comment. Again, I just wanted to stress like the time aspect of it. Work on your scales and your technique, but dedicate some 10 to 15 minutes at least on being creative. That's my 2 cents.
And that's the best way to go, because first of all, in that way you are applying what you learned today and what you've practiced today. You're applying it in an actual musical situation, but you're still practicing. You're by yourself, so there is no danger here of sounding bad, right? You're practicing, but you are playing music. And it's also like as if you're giving yourself a present for your hard work so far. So let's say that you've been practicing for half an hour, 10 hours, whatever it may be. At the end of your practice session, finish it with a treat for yourself, okay? Play some music, no matter what it sounds like, okay? Give yourself a present, as Dale Cooper said in Twin Peaks. Every day.
Yeah, that's a cool one. Also, a teacher of mine in college said sometimes like, don't be afraid of making mistakes because we're now doctors, right? We're not operating the knee from someone. So if we mess up, there's no
It's
wrongdoing
harmless.
in that. Exactly,
Yes.
it's extremely harmless, and it's just fun to know yourself and to know what you can do on the instrument. So yeah, just try stuff out, be creative, especially on your soloing and songwriting as well, if you're into that. Now, with that in mind, guys, before we wrap this up, do you guys have any questions or comments on what we have talked today? If so, please let us know. Thank you, Philip. Glad you liked it. Also on the YouTube chat, if anybody has a question or a comment, please leave it. We'll be glad to hear. And lastly, we'll just leave you one last time with the link for you guys to apply to our academy if you feel that's something you're interested in. I'm gonna leave it on the Zoom chat and the YouTube chat as well. That's link.guitarzoom.com/next-step for you guys to consider joining. Yeah, we do very personalized assessments on your goals and a lot of conversations every day on both general and specific topics on all levels, whether you're just starting out or have already spent some solid years into it and want to get to the next level. We're here for you, okay? So with that in mind, guys, I'll leave you. Victor, do you have anything to add?
No, that's it. Thank you for joining, guys. I also have a class starting in 1 minute, so I have to go. But thank you for being here, and see you soon. Okay?
Sure. See you soon, guys, and have a great weekend, everyone, okay?
Bye bye.
Take care. Thank you, Victor. Bye bye.